Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Entrepreneur and welcome to my media channel. And today we've got a very big topic to discuss today, and it involves Disney's upcoming, or shall I say lack of upcoming, 4K Ultra HD releases. Now, news broke via Bill Hunt of the Digital Bits that confirming rumors that were running around the industry that Disney currently has no plans for no more live action catalog titles on Ultra HD 4K. Now, keep in mind, Disney is not ceasing Ultra HD production altogether. They will, predictably, keep the format alive for animated movies, Pixar films, Marvel and Star Wars fare, maybe some of the James Cameron titles. But beyond some, and of course, new release films that do not have a disc release of any kind. So basically, what's going on now is like Disney has basically said, with the exception of specific types of movies, we will continue to release Ultra HD 4K discs in the future. All the past catalog titles will not be made available, and it is assumed that many of these titles will be put on Disney Plus and Hulu. Although, of course, that's concerning because Disney has been censoring movies that they put on Disney Plus, even G-rated movies like a Goofy movie and PG-rated films like Lilo and Stitch. Now, this was a well-written and well-researched article from Bill Hunt. I want to say right now, I am fully confident in his sources. I've been reading this site for years. I've given money to his site. I think that Digital Bits is one of the sites you need to be reading if you are a fan of not even just physical media, but streaming and movies in general. And he wrote a very long article, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. But there are a few key points in this article that I want to discuss, and then we can talk about why this might be happening, and of course, my thoughts on it. Now, after a fairly big, write-up, the first thing to be commented on is the fact that Disney has been aggressive with their animated Star Wars and Marvel 4K catalog releases, but they've made almost no effort to promote any of them, even going so far as to not send out reviewed products to critics. I think there's a reason for this. I think it's because those titles sell whether the critics are involved or not. And this is kind of what Disney has become in the last 5 years, and one of the reasons why, even as a shareholder and a longtime fan, I have some issues with the company. Because the name Disney used to mean something. It used to mean great original movies. It used to mean imagination. It used to mean some risk-taking. I mean, heck, you must remember that when they bought Marvel, that was a big risk at the time. When they decided when they were going to buy Pixar, a company that had made only one sequel in their entire lives, that was a risk at the time. Maybe not as much because Pixar was a proven hit, but Disney used to be about making magic, and now they're about franchising. They're aggressive about their animated Star Wars and Marvel properties because it's easy money. And those live-action Disney remakes, which are essentially animated movies. So, first of all, it shows that obviously Disney has a disconnect with the reviewers and the critics because they don't want to send this stuff over, because why do they have to? This stuff will sell one way or another. Another interesting point is that Home Alone and Hocus Pocus is set to arrive on physical 4K next month, but that's where the backlog of the physical media set movies for older movies and the 20th Century Fox titles is apparently going to end. Now, I do want to state right now that if you want to see more 4K releases from Disney, it might be even more important that you buy these, and I'll explain why in a minute. Now, it was brought up, is this because of the pandemic? And the answer is, frankly, I don't think so. I actually don't think the pandemic has much to do with this at all. In fact, if anything, physical media has been helping studios during the pandemic because they can't release movies in theaters and they have to shutter their parks, and a lot of people are staying indoors. And yes, while people are subscribing to subscription services, they are also buying more physical media than ever. I've even heard one of my friends who runs a Barnes & Noble say that the 50% off Criterion sale was by far his store's most successful Criterion Collection sale he has ever witnessed, and that's saying something. So I don't believe this is the pandemic. I think what happened, and it's kind of alluded to in a little bit in the article, is that Disney has become a franchise machine. In fact, Bob Iger's whole philosophy midway through his tenure was that he did not want to greenlight a movie unless you could get a sequel out of it, you could get a theme park attraction out of it, and you could get a toy out of it. He wanted those three things from the movies he was greenlighting. If you could not get them all, he was far, far less interested in greenlighting it. Not that he personally greenlights every movie, but that's the philosophy behind Bob Iger's Disney. Sure, once in a while you get a Queen of Katwe in there. However, it should be noted, Queen of Katwe lost money. Also, even though that was being released as a standalone movie, it was still presented as ESPN Presents, so there was still some form of synergy with that movie. But that's what Disney has become. They don't make a movie just to make a movie. They make a movie to make sequels and to sell product. That's what Disney does. Now, it should be noted that that was Bob Iger's business strategy. We don't know what Bob Chapek's strategy is in all this. But knowing that this was Iger's way of thinking, it should come as no surprise that Iger did not give two hoots about things like Disney history, older films, or films that you could not dust off to make something new out of. And it should also come as no surprise that under Iger's tenure, all the animated movies got remade and repackaged. Because what do those movies have? They have built-in merchandise and they have built-in theme park attractions. So why not? Now then, Bill Hunt also mentions that there's almost no one left on staff from 20th Century Fox, which is no longer 20th Century Fox, it's now 20th Century, and that might have something to do with it. And there are few people now at Disney who have any investment in their classic live-action films of the past, in the Touchstone library, and certainly the Fox library beyond Star Wars and the Fox-driven Marvel properties like X-Men. And that's a similar situation with a lot of Hollywood studios. And one of the reasons why is because old content is now, it's not looked at history anymore. It's now looked as, this is something for a streaming platform, and it's sold for pennies on the dollar. And one of the problems when you put these types of things on these streaming services is that even hardcore fans, well, maybe not hardcore fans, but even some fans of those movies might ask, what's the point of buying a new disc of that movie if it's going to be on a streaming platform? Now, he has mentioned that the exception seems to be James Cameron's Avatar. Makes sense. There's a sequel coming out, and they will want that 4K release to coincide with the movie. Heck, Avatar is such a rare exception, and James Cameron gets his way so much that there's even a possibility that when Avatar 2 comes to Blu-ray and 4K, we'll get a Blu-ray 3D with it. That's how much control James Cameron has. And Bill Hunt also mentions that these were the three biggest factors. Will it work on Disney Plus? Will it drive sales of consumer products? And will it drive sales of theme park tickets? Now, I have not heard of the will it work on Disney Plus angle. However, who was the one who basically launched Disney Plus, and that was going to be his legacy? Bob Iger. So there is a possibility that this is still under the Bob Iger mindset. Now, I believe, and people like Robert Meyer Burnett back me up on this, that this is a very, very short-sighted thing to do. Yes, we do know that eventually this is all going to go away. Like, these movies I'm surrounding myself with, they're going to be the only ones I have, because it's all going to be streaming. And heck, if the players aren't around, then maybe I won't even have this. Maybe I'll be forced to kind of pack them up in boxes and put them in a garage. Who knows? That said, the disc media landscape is still very profitable right now. It's extremely profitable. In fact, you can see that for a lot of companies, with Warner's not listed here, most revenue is up thanks largely because of physical media, because people are staying at home and they're buying discs. And even if this stuff is going away eventually, it's not gone yet. And it's foolish for Disney to not even have their eye on the prize, especially when you consider they're at a point where they can't open new movies. They can't open their theme parks. They can't have their cruise ships. There are so many things that Disney can't make money off. Why take something that you can make money off the table? Why would you even do that? Hey, it might not be making you the most money, but it's making you something, and that should be a priority for Disney, to make some money. And also, I find what's really interesting, and this is why they're highlighting these things, is that while Walt Disney Studios revenue dropped in the third quarter, it was up over the whole year, primarily on the strength of Frozen 2 and Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. This is why those brands are super important. But why were the sales down overall? It's because they don't have a home entertainment plan for physical media. And here's the thing that people don't understand about streaming, and I tell them there's no money in streaming, or there's at least very, very little in streaming. I mean, do you honestly think Disney's making money off $7 a month, even from 60 million people? They're not. There's servers costs, you have to make the content for there. The Mandalorian is not cheap. And that's why when Mulan comes to Disney Plus in a month, which I will not be buying, they are charging an extra $30 because you just can't afford to give that stuff away. And yet, that's what Disney wants to focus on. And they want to ignore the physical media altogether, which seems foolhardy. At one day, Disney Plus will be profitable. And it'll probably be very profitable because Disney will probably master the upcharge sale on Disney Plus. Until that happens, though, it's kind of strange that they have no physical media presence really at all. Now, one paragraph that's interesting is like, this is odd because current Disney CEO Bob Chapek was for years, back to the early days of Blu-ray, the president of the studio's home entertainment division. And while he certainly had his hands full lately, stepping up for the role of the CEO just as the pandemic hit, I'm hopeful he'll realize that rejuvenating home entertainment can help put the company in a stronger position. He's even made a bit of noise in the direction in recent interviews, though only in regard to VOD and digital. Regardless, Disney currently seems to have almost no physical media strategy other than to simply ignore it. And again, physical media is a $4 billion a year industry. That's probably not money you want to leave on the table. Now, it has been suggested that Disney could be licensing some of these titles out to other studios like maybe Criterion and Arrow and Kino Labor. That would be great if that happened. But it also kind of goes to show why I really, really hated the whole 20th Century Fox purchase. Because I had a feeling that Disney would get the rights to all these titles and they would just sit on them and not do anything with them. Now what's really interesting is like they're kind of putting me in like a gunpoint position where I feel like I have to buy Home Alone and Hocus Pocus, even if I don't really want to. Because here's the thing, make no mistake, money talks. And if you really want to send the strongest message that you can to Disney about buying movies on 4K, the best thing to do is to buy movies on 4K Ultra HD. And right now, the two titles we have to buy to really show that we want those catalog titles is Home Alone and Hocus Pocus. And I have very, very mixed feelings about that. Certainly Home Alone is a classic, but that's not one I necessarily need to buy in 4K. For that matter, I'm really not a fan of Hocus Pocus. The wife will like that one, but I'm not much of a fan. And the reality is I don't really want to buy these movies. There are tons of 20th Century Fox titles I would love to buy on 4K, The French Connection, maybe the Garfield movies, they're guilty pleasures. Obviously the X-Men movies, although those are probably safe. Patton, there's a lot of great stuff that the 20th Century Fox catalog has that will just never get released physically, and those are the stuff that I would much rather buy over Home Alone and Hocus Pocus. But hey, money talks, so I will be buying Home Alone and Hocus Pocus. Now here's the interesting thing. Since this article leaked, Disney did respond to it. And their response was interesting, to say the least. In fact, Bill has even bolded it for me. And a Disney spokesperson said there are no plans to discontinue releases in a particular format. We evaluate each release on a case-by-case basis and pursue the best strategy to bring our content into consumer homes across platforms that meet a variety of demands. Now then, aside from the fact that I do believe that Bill Hunt was correct in his reporting, this statement doesn't exactly disprove anything he said, because they say we evaluate each release on a case-by-case basis. Well, you're not going to be reviewing thousands upon thousands of movies on a case-by-case basis. I believe the case-by-case basis has come and gone, and they have deemed animated films, Pixar films, I guess those are animated, Star Wars, Marvel, maybe James Cameron, and if there's a sequel to a movie that we own, maybe that one as well. And everything else can go to streaming. We don't care. So even though they say like they have no plans to discontinue releases in a particular format, this statement doesn't disprove anything that was written, because I believe they already made a decision. And also, because they technically, the report did say that animated Star Wars and Marvel films would continue to be released in the Ultra 4K format, well, that still suggests that there's no plan to discontinue releases in a particular format. They're still releasing movies in 4K. And by the way, here are some other movies that you could be getting in 4K that we probably won't because of what's going on. Patton, which I mentioned, Tombstone, Aliens, Speed, Kingdom of Heaven, Master and Commander, The Abyss, True Lies, the Die Hard sequels. I think the first one did get released in Ultra HD. Rocky Horror Picture Show, Fight Club, The Rock, Pearl Harbor, Armageddon, because keep in mind, this follows Touchstone. Now, he mentions The Nightmare Before Christmas. I think The Nightmare Before Christmas will eventually come to 4K. That's just too big of a title. Then you have 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the Tron movies, which that's getting a sequel, so those will probably get. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I'd love to have Who Framed Roger Rabbit in 4K. Rushmore, National Treasure 1 and 2, Big Trouble in Little China. I believe we will get the Pirates of the Caribbean films in 4K, because again, sequels. And there's just a ton of them. There's a ton of them. And so this news was very disappointing. I believe it was very short-sighted. But now, if you as a consumer want to get these titles in 4K, you have two things you've got to do. Number one, first and foremost, this is important, buy Home Alone and Hocus Pocus on Ultra HD 4K. I know you might not want them in 4K. I already have Home Alone, and I think the high definition is good enough, and I don't particularly care for Hocus Pocus, but I will buy them to show that I will buy them. Now, the second thing you do is you write Bob Chapek, whoever's the head of the Disney Home Entertainment, you write them letters, and you explain your dissatisfaction with them. Optional things you could do, maybe cancel Disney Plus in protest. That might not be a terrible idea. Something that I personally do, not everyone does, but I personally do it, is I actually mail receipts to the people that I'm writing letters to, so that they can see that I'm an actual paying customer and not just someone who's talking out of his butt. You can decide to do that whether you want. I don't care. But the number one thing is you got to buy those releases, and then you got to write them letters. Other things, optional. But anyway, that's where we are with Disney on Ultra HD 4K. It's a pretty abysmal state of affairs that Disney is so callous about not only the catalog that they bought from 20th Century Fox, but that they are also so callous about their own catalog. Now, there is one thing that they might do that has not been discussed. I think one of the reasons they might not be doing anything right now is because I think they might be planning to sell a lot of these movies. And I know it sounds crazy, but hear me out. It is known that Disney is hurting. We know that they are in debt. We know that there will probably be some trimming of the fat. Putting these movies on Disney Plus and Hulu will certainly make the content more attractive to subscribers, but it's not necessarily going to make them a whole lot more money. So if a Kino Labor or someone has like $500 million and says we'll buy the Fox catalog, who knows? Maybe Disney will do it. I mean, they effectively did that with the Miramax catalog. They didn't know what to do with those movies, and they sold the Miramax catalog to a third entity, who then made a deal with Lionsgate, I believe, to release a lot of those movies on Blu-ray and DVD and in digital. So who knows what's going to happen? Disney might just, for a little extra pocket money, sell these titles to a third-party studio, and then we might get them on disc after all. You never know. But anyway, I would like to know what you think about this. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Or do you agree with Bill? Disagree with Bill? I mean, I kind of took a lot of his points from the article, so this is, in a strange way, just as much his video as it is mine. But I would love to know what you think. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, flame responsibly.